In an old village located far from busy roads and large cities, the spirit of the past reigned. The local residents lived in their small houses, rarely leaving the village. Time here seemed to flow slowly, as if it had stopped at some point many years ago. In this village, there was a place that everyone avoided, not daring even to look in its direction: an old, dilapidated mansion standing on the edge of the forest. The mansion, known as the House of Winds, was built over 200 years ago by a certain Baron August von Witten. The Baron was a man of stern character and held everyone in fear. It was said that he was involved in something dark, that behind his wealth and power lay something terrible. After his death, the mansion became abandoned, and since then no one had dared to live in it. The legends of the House of Winds were passed down from generation to generation, growing more terrifying with each year. Many claimed that at night strange sounds could be heard from the mansion's windows: moans, screams, and sometimes strange whispers. It was believed that the Baron's soul and those of his followers could still not find peace and wandered through the mansion's rooms in search of something unknown. Some brave souls attempted to enter, but none of them returned. The village continued to live its usual rhythm, and everyone preferred not to remember the old house. One day, a young historian named Mikhail Granovsky arrived in the village. He was studying the history of forgotten places and collecting materials for his book about ancient estates and their owners. Upon hearing about the House of Winds, Mikhail decided it would be an excellent topic for a new chapter. He was sure that all the stories about ghosts and curses were just folk tales, and the mansion was an interesting historical site worthy of study. Mikhail rented a room in a local inn and began asking the villagers about the house. Most of them refused to talk, only shrugging and cautiously eyeing the stranger. But one evening, while Mikhail was sitting in a small cafe on the edge of the village, an old man with a long gray beard and deep wrinkles on his face sat down next to him. His eyes were full of wisdom and sorrow. "You're here because of the House of Winds," the old man said, not asking but stating. "I know why you came, but I don't think you should go there." Mikhail was surprised, but curiosity got the better of caution. "I've heard many stories about this place, but I want to know the truth. Who was this Baron, and what secrets does his house hold?" he asked. The old man sighed and began to tell his story. Baron August von Witten was a cruel and powerful man. He ruled these lands with an iron fist, and no one dared to oppose him. But what no one knew was that the Baron was fascinated by the occult. It was said he made a deal with dark forces in exchange for immortality. He performed terrible rituals in the basements of his mansion, sacrificing innocent people. But at some point, something went wrong. The Baron disappeared, and his servants and friends died under strange circumstances. Since then, the house has been deserted, and no one has dared to enter. "That's just a legend," Mikhail said, smiling. "Are you saying the Baron is still alive and hiding in his house?" "I'm not saying anything," the old man replied, "but you should know that this place is cursed. Everyone who tried to uncover its secret disappeared without a trace. If you decide to go, be prepared that there may be no way back." Mikhail paid no heed to the old man's warning. His soul burned with curiosity and a thirst for knowledge. He was sure he could uncover the mansion's secret and tell the world what had happened many years ago. The next day, Mikhail set off for the mansion. The path led through a dense forest, where old trees with intertwined roots and branches seemed to try to stop anyone who dared to pass by. The sky over the forest was covered with gray clouds, and a light drizzle fell, as if warning of impending trouble. The mansion stood on a small rise, surrounded by tall fences that had long since tilted and become overgrown with thorny bushes. The gates, once sturdy and reliable, now barely hung on their hinges. Mikhail pushed them, and they opened with an unpleasant creak. Inside, everything was covered with a thick layer of dust and cobwebs. The furniture, once luxurious, now looked like a pile of rotting boards and rags. Mikhail carefully moved across the old floors, which creaked under his feet, and inspected the rooms. The air was filled with the smell of mold and decay. He climbed to the second floor, where the bedrooms were located. In one of them, the largest, stood a bed with a torn canopy. On the wall hung a portrait of a man in old-fashioned clothes. With cold and stern features, it was Baron August von Witten himself. Mikhail stood before the portrait for a long time, studying every detail. There was something disturbing in the Baron's eyes, as if he wanted to say something important but couldn't. Suddenly, Mikhail felt a cold draft, although all the windows were closed. He turned around but saw no one. Everything seemed strangely familiar, and at the same time frighteningly alien. Continuing his exploration, Mikhail stumbled upon an old, half-collapsed staircase leading to the basement. This place looked particularly ominous. Overcoming his fear, he decided to go down. The basement was dark, and only the dim light of his flashlight illuminated the way. The walls of the basement were covered with strange symbols carved directly into the stone. In the depths of the basement, Mikhail found a massive door, behind which he believed the mansion's main secret was hidden. He made an effort to open it, and before him was a small room lit by the dim light of candles that seemed to have been burning for hundreds of years. In the center of the room stood an altar, on which lay a book bound in leather. The pages of the book were covered with incomprehensible signs, and Mikhail felt a sense of horror. It seemed that a dark force emanated from the book, trying to consume his mind. Mikhail picked up the book and began to read. He understood only part of the text, but what he understood shocked him. The book described a ritual by which the Baron tried to gain immortality by making a deal with a demon. But something went wrong, and instead of eternal life, the Baron found eternal torment. Suddenly, the room became unbearably cold, and Mikhail heard a whisper coming from the darkness. He turned around and saw shadows beginning to move toward him. He realized that these shadows were the souls of those who had died in this house, and now they had come for him. Mikhail rushed to the exit, but the path was blocked. The shadows surrounded him, and he felt the cold paralyzing his body. He understood that he was trapped, and that now he would become part of this terrible story, like all those who had come here before him. The last thing he heard before losing consciousness was a mocking laugh coming from the depths of the basement. Mikhail disappeared without a trace, and his book remained unfinished. Now the mansion stood alone, hiding yet another victim of its cursed secret.